right. Let's get a sound check. See Farsight always in first. Sounds pretty good on my end. All right, everybody. Tad low. All right, let's see what we can do here. How's that? Check. All right, welcome everybody to CanHammer TV. It is June 2nd. It is Blackout Tuesday. What a crazy time. Shout out to my American friends and colleagues as their country literally being torn apart. And it's sad to see. And I just hope everybody can stay safe and keep fighting for change. It's tough. You've got a chance now with some primaries and things going on. But, part of me thinks it's just ingrained. I mean, they had a black president for a while and nothing really changed. So I hope things can change for the better. On the flip side of that was, of course, the country and really coming together to send a couple of dudes into space, which was quite amazing to watch. And if it weren't for COVID isolation, we would not have been able to watch it. So that was great. My daughter really, really was amazed by it. It was amazing seeing this thing go up in space. I've seen launches before, but it was still cool just because of the historic nature of it. And I personally don't think that we're gonna get very far in space, at least in none of our lifetimes. But it's pretty cool to see it nonetheless. For me, the coolest thing, because I've not really been following SpaceX all these years, the coolest thing was seeing that thing land again perfectly right on this floating drone ship, right on the freaking X. Boom. Done. Wow. And I know it cut out at the last minute, and they explained that it's because of the interference. You can watch the video of it landing now, after the fact. But it just literally just goes zoom, right on the ship. Like, mine was blown. I was like, wow. I was expecting it to land in the water, and I was like, this thing just literally landed itself on the ship. Go home, time for dinner, boom. I was like, wow. That was amazing. I mean, the guys getting into space was cool, but, I've seen that before. They got into space. That's really cool, with their, space age cool, Tesla suits and everything. But that thing landing back on the ship, that just blew my mind. That blew my mind. Before y'all ask, I'm drinking Muskoka Detour tonight. This is a great summer beer that I love from the Muskoka Brewery. Amazing. So good stuff, bad stuff this week. 40K wise, the 40K Daily Show started. It's half hour every day where they talk about the new edition. And on Monday, they talked about a few things. Nothing too mind-blowing, but they clarified the modifiers is really for dice rolls, not for statistics or characteristics. And it's not just to hit. Sounds like it may be for all modifiers, but we'll see, how does it work on charge rolls? Maybe it's going to be different for things that are 2d6. I don't know. They never clarified. And then apparently the rest of this week we're going to hear more news. Today was all about Crusade. And then hopefully we're going to hear more about the CP system, this new command phase that apparently we have now at the beginning of every turn. Be nice to know what's happening with that. There's a lot of speculation, of course, but nobody really knows. So it's a pretty exciting time. We're watching that 40K Daily, and if there's anything sweet, we'll definitely talk about it. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough to really negate my Inquisitor show tonight, so we will be talking about Inquisitors tonight. And hopefully by next week, we're going to get some actual Custodies leaks from our book coming up, maybe, and we'll see. So we'll play it by ear, but we will be carrying on with regularly scheduled programming tonight. Everybody was very hopeful today because the icon that they used for today's 40K daily stream was, of course, the picture of the two Custodies playing with all this extra CP. But it was not a show about Custodies. It was a show about Crusade. Crusade sounds pretty cool. It's like a legacy. So in terms of like legacy board game where the game changes from game to game, escalation. So they want you to like buy a starter box and build up to a full army. And of course your guys can like level up and do cool stuff. I think that sounds pretty cool. I think if you have like a bunch of dudes who play every week at the game store, you could all buy a starter box and do a legacy escalation basically. And I think that sounds really cool. It's not really a competitive thing, and I don't think it's meant to be, but it's certainly something that they're really pushing hard right now. So hopefully it ends up being a cool way to play. And maybe what we'll do is, as well as our competitive bat reps, maybe I'll get, Francois or a couple of guys, and we will do a Crusade campaign, maybe once every 2 weeks or something like that. I don't know. We can think about it, but there's a lot of potential for trying new things out. So, hobby-wise, what have people been up to in the hobby? Let me know. I have just been plugging away at these Eldar bikers, still plugging away. And in the back of my mind, I'm starting to think about my next project, which is I was initially going to do a bust in order to really work on painting things accurately, like skin and metal and things like that. Really, as a true hobby project, try and paint a bust. But then I saw a Painting Buddha video painting Horus from Forge World, and I'm like, maybe I should paint a Primarch. That would be pretty cool. And then I thought, I have this. This is my Genetia Crawl model that I bought quite a long time ago, and she's a little bit small, so I wanted to practice on large volume areas. But it might be a cool project to paint Genetia Crawl, who is almost entirely metal, and paint it all with like silver non-metallic metal as a real practice case. So maybe put her on a plinth or something like that. She comes with like a little rock, but like put her on like a little proper plinth. Maybe paint it as a competition piece. I don't know. So that's a possibility because I have this completely still shrink wrapped model that I haven't used. So we'll see. So that's kind of hobby that we've been doing right now. After I've done my bikers, I might not paint the rest of my Harlequins yet, just because it's so close to 9th and I want to see kind of what happens. So don't know if I want to commit just now. But I could certainly be a good time to start up on these hobby goals. Big shout out to Sock Addict on our Discord. And if you want to join our CanHammer Discord, it's right here, and you will find the Custodies Collective on there. And it was his great idea to do like a pre-show on Discord and the audio channels. And the purpose of the pre-show is sort of maybe a few hours before the actual live stream to have this slightly moderated hosted audio chat that anybody can join, and about particular topics, hobby and everything, but also the topic of tonight's conversation as a pre-show. And then you could feed back to me what other people have been talking about, so that it's not just me spouting my opinions. We can get what other people have been doing as well. And I managed to attend about half hour of it, and it went on for about 2 hours, so it was pretty good. And there was a lot of just friendly chatter, and it was really actually quite good. So shout out to Sock Addict for not only coming up with the idea, but running it. And I just got to do better at advertising it. But it's going to be around 2 p.m. Eastern on the day of the live streams. So as a kind of pre-show to the live stream. So as well, it kind of makes us use the Discord a little bit more in terms of the audio channels, which I think is really good. People should just go in there and chat at any time while you're painting or whatever. And it's also, because of the time, and he's from England, it helps us with our over-the-ocean colleagues and the Australians who maybe are out of sync with my 9 p.m. Eastern showtime. So kind of cool if we can sort of include everybody in those sorts of things. So seems like a great idea. If people were there or have feedback about it, then let us know. Keep your eyes out for the advertisements for the pre-shows. It's usually on the same day. And do join the Discord channels right there. And that apparently is a never expiring link, but hasn't worked. Black Ice, welcome. Of course, C Farsight as usual. Sean Stryker, Tom, the usual suspects. Of course, Tom makes it from the UK, like, 3 a.m. in the morning. So, otherwise, hype for ninth still on that hype train. Haven't really received anything too groundbreaking since our last stream, but probably going to be seeing a lot more and getting super hype for our book. Like, super hype. Really excited. I think it was a couple of days ago, the guys on the Discord were so excited they just wanted me to pretend and make some shit up. So I made up a rule that we have what's called Marshal Disciplines. They're like tides, and one of them is a +1 damage to melee weapons for the whole army. It was crazy. But anyway, wish listing maybe. Who knows? But super excited for our book. Finally. Maybe in as little as 2 weeks. 3 weeks, I think. So AdMech book comes out this weekend, and then 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. Could be. There's been some serious leaks that it's going to be like the 25th or something of July for 9th edition, with pre-orders starting 2 weeks before that. So, that about makes us coming in at mid-June, with the Necron book kind of end of June, beginning of July. So I think it's going to be good. I think we're about right. Bruce Gordon, welcome. So tonight we're going to be talking about Inquisitors or Inquisition. This is was actually very requested, and I put it off a couple of times because it's kind of soup. I know it's not technically soup, but it is kind of soup, adding something non-Custodies into the list. Same with Assassins. I think I talked about Assassins a while ago as part of another show, but it's kind of soup, so I kind of avoid it, and I haven't myself found them to be super useful, but we're going to talk about it tonight, and with an open mind. And the thing is, with anything that you want to add to your Custodies army, and this will hold the same when it comes to looking at Sisters with our new book, is what are you losing and what do you gain? And I think that is how you have to look at all soup in any faction. What are you losing? Usually some kind of rule or special rule or faction rule, maybe CP, maybe points, or detachment or something. What are you losing? What's your opportunity cost? And what are you gaining? So in terms of Inquisition, what are we losing? We're not losing any rules, because Inquisition, basically we can just slot in as an HQ, one Inquisitor. I don't think we should be running inquisitorial detachments at all. So we're just talking single Inquisitors tonight. And then you lose a CP if you want to give it a Warlock Trait, which probably you should. You don't have to. I don't think it's mandatory. But if you want to get the most out of your other cost for this model, which is the points for the model, you might seriously consider spending that 1 CP. And that's a serious cost. I mean, that's 1 CP. That CP you could have used to deep strike something. It's a CP you could use for extra relic. I mean, there have to be, you have to consider the 1 CP cost in our army, which only starts with 8 or 9 CPs max. Now, this obviously may only hold true for the next month and a half, or maybe even for the next 2 weeks. Who knows? But if we end up with a plethora of CP that we can use, I think the value of Inquisition certainly goes up. But then their value might drop again depending what the Sisters bring us. So we're going to have to revisit it all when our book comes out and when Ninth comes out. But I'm going to be saying that a lot over the next few months. But for now, it's a serious cost of 1 CP out of your 8 or 9, and anywhere from 50 to 100 points. So that's it. 100 points, actually not that big a cost to our army, but that is like, a shield captain, or almost all of a banner. So, it's another bike, it's another Terminator, it's almost a couple of Guardians. Like, there's a real cost there. So you have to think about it in those ways. What is the worst that could happen is you buy an Inquisitor who does nothing but sit on a backfield objective and hold it for you. I guess that's acceptable. Otherwise, we're spending 150 point Guardian units to do the same thing. So, there's that. So maybe the points cost is not such a big deal. Personally, I feel like the CP cost is more of the big deal. That's maybe a game-changing Tanglefoot right there. Who knows? But generally, I think the cost versus benefit is probably in favor of Inquisitor. So what are you getting? Okay, well, the first thing we're talking about is these stratagems. So these stratagems it comes with 4 stratagems. Most of the time, you're not using any of these in our army. Not only, again, it's a CP cost that you probably want to spend on your own stratagems, but just generally not good. So, I'm not even going to go over them, but generally not. This 4 CP torpedo thing is 4 CP. That's crazy. Yeah. So I think you maybe spend the CP to give your guy a Warlock trait. And a relic if you're not using the name guys. So we're going to go... so, of course, there's 3 types of Inquisitors. There's Ordo Malleus, Ordo Hereticus, Ordo Xenos, and they all get reroll hit and wound against certain things. So Malleus is demons and chaos, Hereticus is psychers and chaos, and Xenos is Xenos, basically. And that's cool if you actually remember that rule. They can ride on your transports, and they don't take away your army rules. So that's basically, the basic Inquisitor stuff, and you're just taking 1 Inquisitor. We're really going to focus on the named Inquisitors tonight, because I feel like just your barn door, 55-point Inquisitor just doesn't bring enough for even that CP. 1 cast, a deny, is a T3 model that's really easy to kill. It just doesn't bring enough for a CP to warrant it. So I think if you're going to bring somebody, you're bringing one of the named Inquisitors. So let's talk about Warlock Traits. If you are going to pay that CP for a Warlock Trait, if you pick, Eisenhorn, Greyfax, or Codiaz, you're stuck with the Warlock Trait. And so you have to think about that. And some of them are good, some of them are nifty, and some of them are not good. So the Radical one, which Eisenhorn gets as a standard, and is actually a decent one to put on anybody, it gives you a free reroll, basically, and including a psychic test and a deny. That's okay. Codiaz gets Psychic Mastery, which is the Ordo Malleus special Warlock trait, and that's an extra cast and an extra deny. That's good. I mean, considering you're bringing the guy for most of the time, casts and denies, that's actually good to have another one. And then Greyfax, we won't talk about Karamazov tonight because it's just kind of stupid, but Greyfax gets the Hereticus one, No Escape, which on a 4+ stops you from falling back. That's really cool. That may change in a month and a half when 9th comes out, apparently, so you might not need that. But that's pretty cool. It's still a 50% chance as a dice roll. But and then the worst part about it is that she has to kind of be in the action, and she's not particularly tough. So that's a little bit treacherous. But there's that. Okay. So in terms of relics, we'll just go to relics very quickly. Sure, like before that CP, you get a relic. If you're not using a named guy, you get a relic. Just pick a relic. I don't think any of them are particularly good. Maybe the Black Shroud, where you subtract -1 to wound, is pretty good. But that's, again, only for the generic guys, not for the named guys. So I think most of the time, the relic's not that big a deal. The Psychic tree is actually pretty good. So Terrify is a spell on a 6 that enemy unit within 18 inches and -1 leadership, but it cannot overwatch. So that's a very useful spell. On a 6, fairly easy to cast, no overwatch. And that helps our concussion grenades, because concussion, if you have a Lars in the first place, only works on infantry, so it helps against all the other kind of overwatch. So Terrify is a pretty neat power. Psychic Fortitude is morale test. Nobody going to take in that. Dominate is basically within 12 inches of a psyker. That's not a vehicle. And roll 3d6 over the leadership. And if you do, then you can have that person make a shooting or a combat attack. That's not that good. Enemy model within 12 that's not a vehicle. So 1 shot or 1 combat attack is probably not going to be game-changing. Probably skip on that, but it could be fun. If it was like you could do a vehicle, then that's totally different. It's like that mind control from the GSE. Okay, mental interrogation, basically. Enemy character within 12. Subtract 1 from hit rolls. And then if you roll 3d6 and it's greater than leadership, you get a CP. That's great. That is great. I really like that power. It has 2 great benefits. -1 to hit. Like, you put that on a Smash Captain, now it's hitting on 4s. I mean, that's a big deal. And possibly get a CP. 3d6 over leadership on most characters, say 8, 9. That's fairly reliable. The 12-inch thing is difficult. And puts you in harm's way, and so that's the tricky part, is getting within 12-inch. And when I used to play with the Inquisitor, I found that was hard to achieve a lot of the times. But it's definitely one of the powers you consider taking. Psychic Pursuit, no, won't talk about that. Castigation basically is targeted smite, so that's always useful to have smite and a targeted smite. And then we have, if you're using Greyfax, you get the Hereticus power, which is basically Warp Charge 6, 1 enemy unit within 12, subtracts 1 from the attack's characteristics, and if it's 2d6 greater than the leadership, then they also subtract 1 from the hit roll. So that's pretty good debuff, -1 to hit and -1 attacks. That's pretty good for Warp Charge 6 from Greyfax. Ordo Xenos is... a useful power, but I guess you could take Eisenhorn. Friendly Ordo Xenos unit within 6 units can only be selected as the target of attacks if they're the closest visible enemy unit. Okay, and then there's the Malleus power. So for Codiaz and for my man Rex, and so basically that's giving infantry or Imperium biker unit 5+ invuln. So it doesn't really help us. So that's not a very useful power. So basically, we're taking probably either Greyfax or a Malleus Inquisitor. And so we're taking Ascertainment, we're taking Terrify, we're taking Interrogation, we're taking Castigation. These are the things that you choose from. And if we're taking Malleus, so we're taking Codiaz or we're taking Hector Rex, then we're probably taking Castigation, Terrify, Interrogation. So some utility powers that can have some good use. Mostly close range, and so really GW has made these guys want to be frontline psychers, which is okay, except they're a bit squishy. So that's where we come to now, talking about individual psychers. So first of all, they go anywhere from about 80 points to 100 points. So I think, let me just check the points values here. Greyfax, I think, is the cheapest at 85, then Cody is at 90, and Hector Rex is 100 points, and that's everything including his shield. Hector Rex. Now, Hector Rex, if you've never heard of him before, he is a Forge World Inquisitor that you get from Forge World. There's this really cool model with this giant storm shield and this demon slaying sword. Very cool. Very cool model. Look at it. The cape is really cool. He's got nice shoulders. It's a really cool model. So definitely cool. So you're talking about 85 to 100 points for Inquisitor. The generic kind is not really worth, as I say, a normal base Inquisitor, 55 points. Then you got to add gear and everything on top. It only gives you, I think, 1 cast and 2 denies. 1 cast and 1 deny. So that's just not really worth it. 4+ save, 5+ invuln, T3, 5 wounds. That's just not worth 60 to 70 points for that. So then you're talking about the name guys. You could go for the Ordo Malleus Inquisitor in Terminator armor, but this guy already starts off at 91 points. Then you're adding equipment onto him. Say you want to do a hammer and a shield. Now you're adding stuff, and then it's still deny 1 and cast 1. So just not worth it again. So let's talk about Greyfax. So Greyfax, of course, if you pick her, you're into Hereticus. And so she is okay. She is still 3+ save, I think 4+ invuln, 5+ invuln, T3, 5 wounds. So she's not very hard to kill. And she's got this rapid fire 1 bolt gun that basically can target psychers and does 3 damage. So that's okay if you get lucky and you're in rapid fire range and you get lucky and you hit on 3s and you wounding with strength 4, then you're only -1. You might do up to 6 damage, but that's a lot of stuff to come together. I know people make a big deal about her sniping ability, but that's a lot of stuff to come together. You're actually more likely to do more damage by smiting and castigation. So that's not really a huge deal. And then she has +1 to deny, and she can cast 1 power and deny 2. So even that is not great. 1 power and deny 2. That's okay, but for 85, it's not that good. Kodiaz is okay. Like, he manifests 2 and can deny 1. So he's even less deny. When arguably it's the deny that's important for us, not so much the casting. So I would always want more denies than more casts. But he's fairly tough because he's got 2 up, 5 up. Still T3, only 5 wounds, but 2 up save helps. And then he has this thing where he makes you spend an extra CP once per game, which I've heard stories of how awesome that is. And sure, I can see how that could be awesome. If he's still around late game and your opponent only has 1 CP or 2 CP and you make his interrupt cost 3, then sure, that's a big deal. But, you know, there are probably games where you don't use that or you forget to use it. And then, of course, he has the whole thing where they can shoot, but then it's Inquisition unit, Olio Malleus unit. It's not anybody. So, again, and we don't have a lot of shooting, so that's not really useful for us. What I'd like really to talk about is my man Rex. Okay, so Hector Rex. So this guy is 100 points, okay? All in. That includes a Storm Shield. And he has T3, 5 wounds, like all Inquisitors, but he is in Terminator armor and has a Storm Shield. So he is 2 up, 3 up. That is good. Only T3 though, but still, that is a decent amount of save for a little human. And so that's going to do you well. He actually has leadership 9, and that may come in handy for Custodies who are not great for morales. And then he has a couple of other things also going for him for 100 points. Number 1, he deep strikes because he's a Terminator, so he deep strikes, and that is so useful, A, to protect him from getting sniped and stuff in the first 2 to 3 turns of the game when you don't really need him as much. Secondly, it lets you get him where you need to go, within 12 inches of characters to do psychic shenanigans and castigations and terrifies and all those sort of things. So it gets you where he needs to go into the front lines, because he does need to go into the front lines. As I already said, that's what Inquisitors are designed to do. So instead of walking him out, and we're not exactly an army that's swimming in chaff and screen, this really helps you to deep strike him. If worse comes worse, there's nothing for him to do, he can deep strike into the mid-board or backfield objective and hold it while the rest of your army pushes forward. He could be the cheeky little guy in your opponent's zone getting you line breaker or behind enemy lines or onto one of their backfield objectives. He can be useful for that. You got to pick your situation carefully. So the ability to deep strike is really key for him, and all for just 100 points. He has a psychic code, so +1 to deny. And then the real key is he can manifest 2 powers and deny 3. That is the best psyker out of all of them in terms of both casts and denies. And if you give him a Warlock trait with your CP, now he can cast 3 and deny 4. That's like a whole army's worth of denies for a lot of armies, unless you're like Grey Knights or Demons. And at +1 deny, that's pretty good. So he's actually quite the strong psyker as well. So I think for 100 points, is hands down, he's your man. He is definitely your man for 100 points. Now, I had bad experience with old Rex because I took him to the boiler room, aka Charity Hammer, and playing a weak army against the best players with the best armies in the game at that time, and he just got roasted. I got roasted and he got roasted. So I had a bad impression of Rex, but now that trauma has left my mind, if you are going to take an Inquisitor, I would take Rex. I think he's the best one. Now, if you're playing in a situation where you cannot take Forge World models, and hopefully that situation will be gone as of 9th edition once the Forge World books come out, then take Greyfax. But if you can take whatever you like, then take Rex. Great model too, great model, very detailed, very nice Forge World model. And so he can hold his own in combat too. So he has 3 attacks, and he hits at strength 4, -3, D3 damage. That's decent. And of course, if it is a demon, he also does Immortal. So with demons coming back, who knows? But I wouldn't take him because he's going to go smack things. Obviously, you take him for the psychic support. And as I said, if worse comes to worse, you take 100 points and you put it on an objective and leave them there. And if they don't have any snipers, you'll just live there forever. You can help them get recon or King of the Hill. I mean, there's lots of uses for a single model that are characters. And anyone who comes near him might be eating a smite and a castigation, a bolt pistol, and a sword. So he's not defenseless. And depending on what's shooting him, may take a little bit of effort to remove. So pretty good. Gotta give Hector Rex my due. Okay, there's another Forge World Inquisitor, Solomon Locke, who sucks. You don't need to take him. Yeah, so that's basically about it. I think if you're playing Custodies and you want to take Inquisitor, you should probably take Hector Rex or Greyfax. I did have a Greyfax. I can't find her. Maybe she got butchered. And how you use them, I think, is you try and be conservative with them at first, and then as you push out, you put them close to your front line, and you use them for exactly what you're going to use: psychic support, terrify, interrogation, castigation, those sorts of things. If it's Greyfax or Hereticus, powers is a pretty nice debuff. You use it for smites just to do those last few wounds. So they can be, and then use them for denies. Denying Doom, denying Jinx, all these things that denying Death Hex, Null Zone. I mean, there's a lot of things out there that we would like to deny, even smites, jumps out of combat. I mean, there's a lot of potential things to deny. And so, yeah, so I think it's probably worth doing. So, yeah. I don't think there's going to be a super long episode tonight. I mean, it's mostly just, 1 or 2 models we're talking about. So if people have questions about the Inquisitors, please post them. Post them in the chat, and we'll answer them up as best we can. We had a couple of questions on the Discord, so we'll go through those right now. All right. Best psychic powers to take. Well, I think we talked about that. So, so Hector Rex, he knows 2 psychic powers, and then I think the Warlord trait allows him to know another one. Let's see. Warlord knows 1 additional power. So Hector Rex could potentially take 3 powers, and so I would take Terrify, Interrogation, and Castigation. If just 2, then I'd probably take Interrogation and Castigation. Maybe Terrify. Depends who you're up against. And next question. With limited modifiers in 9th, will the added fragility of models lead to a higher skill ceiling for competitive players? The movement phase will be more important than ever. That's a complex question. I mean, modifiers are not just about fragility. Also affects hitting, and it affects both offense and defense. So I don't really think it's going to make a huge difference, to be honest. I just think there's going to be less abuse and stupid shit in the game. So I think good players are always good players. They've been good players forever through every edition, no matter what army's been good, what army's been bad, and bad players are bad players. And so I don't really think that makes a big difference in terms of the ultra competitive end of the game. I don't think any rule change really does. They just adapt. Ito Rossi, what would you remove in your list to make room for the Inquisitor? Yeah, good question. In my current Alaris concept list, I'd probably drop an Alaris and then drop a bunch of like daggers and stuff. So I'd go with 6 and 3 Alaris Terminators, drop my surgical unit down to 3, and then run the Inquisitor. Either that, or I could drop a Guardian or two, a couple of Guardians from the Guardian Bomb. So drop an Alaris, and then I think an Alaris and some daggers and stuff would do it. But if I need to, drop a Guardian and an Alaris, and then I'd have some points left over just to buy daggers and stuff. Yeah, so I think that's what I would do. That's what I would drop from my Alaris concept list. The thing about Custodies is, sometimes you have like 100 points that you don't know what to do with, right? And so it's an easy decision then. Sometimes you have like 80 points that you don't know what to do with, and so you could usually... It's kind of... Making a Custodies list is almost like making an AOS list. Everything comes in chunks of points. There's not a lot of... other than adding daggers, there's not a lot of other leeway. You could switch your weapons around on your Vexillas, and that's about it. So it's kind of like, there's not a huge amount of flexibility in making a Custodies list. So yeah. All right, Rex, you get to chill out in the back. Again, with the unused Sagittarium. All right, so while we're waiting for more questions, tomorrow night's talk was actually requested of me and Chris to do a talk on tournament etiquette and behavior. And this is a great topic. And so we're going to try and deep dive into it. And we're going to talk about not only etiquette, good etiquette, bad etiquette, what are the expectations of behavior while you're playing. We'll be talking like in a competitive environment. We'll also be talking about cheating, which is basically a form of etiquette. We're going to be talking about what's considered cheating, what are the common ways that people have been known to cheat. And so hopefully that will prepare. I think this was coming from a person who's thinking of getting into competitive play. And obviously it is always the thing that, all competitive players are whack, assholes. It's completely false. And I think people have also heard so many times that competitive players are no different. In fact, often better behaved than your, dude from the basement at the FLGS, right? That nobody likes. It is, the vast majority of experiences in tournaments is amazing. And that's why people love doing tournaments so much, that you can compete at the highest level and still have such a great time. So hopefully this will help people who are thinking about getting into the competitive scene or re-entering it, or maybe starting off with 9th. It's a great time to start. These are things to look out for, but it is not common at all. And it's always difficult to do a show on that topic and not give people the impression that this is everywhere and everybody's doing it, because it's definitely not. What's the story behind the Sagittarium? Why don't I like them? I just don't think they do enough. I don't think they do enough, and that's basically it. I think it wouldn't be hard to make Sagittarium good. I think just give them more shots. But yeah, so I just don't think they do enough. That's basically it. Yeah, I have 10 of those dudes there, and I gave them their shot on the battlefield, and I just was very underwhelmed. The other thing is, these days we gotta win by surviving and by hiding and just not dying and denying kills, and so I think they've just with the drop in points of the Guardians and Storm Shields, I think just having 3+ invuln is way better than having a few heavy bolter shots. So so I hope our book changes that. I hope we don't have to rely so much on Storm Shields. If there's some way that stratagem or rules can give us the equivalent without needing to buy 18 guys with Storm Shields, then that would be very welcome. And we could definitely see that. I mean, a stratagem giving us +1 save, that's not without precedent. We could definitely do with something like that, and then we could get rid of some Storm Shields. But it's an exciting time. We got our book coming up, and then we got, which involves, changes in terms of integration with sisters and a bunch of new rules and stuff. And then shortly after that, we got a new edition where lots of things are changing, and that could totally change the game for us. We may not even have time to digest our book and figure out what's good and not good, and then the edition changes. And then shortly after that, we expect there to be the Forge World book, which of course is like half of the units that we use. So that's going to have big changes. So maybe not, but maybe. Actually, if you had to pick the faction whose Forge World units are least likely to change, it's probably ours. But, it's all going to be up in the air, and it's a super exciting time. I know that frustrates people, especially if you just got in and now everything is changing, but it's a good thing. Trust me, it's a good thing. Specifically for us, it's a good thing, but I think just in general, a new edition is always good. And from all that I've heard from all the playtesters, I don't always believe GW hype, but from all the playtesters, all I've heard is that they all pretty much think this is the best edition of 40k yet. It's pretty popular opinion that 8th edition was one of the best editions ever, and so if 9th is just an improvement on 8th, then it's going to be great. And so I think it's a great time to get into the hobby right now. Just don't spend a lot of money on useless stuff right now. Just maybe wait. I mean, you can definitely still buy Custodies because we only have X number of models and units, and so you're going to be using them in some form or another. And nobody knows what's going to be good. So don't believe anybody who tells you this is going to be good, this is not going to be good. Nobody knows. Yeah, there's so much speculation out there right now. Nobody knows shit. So you just ignore all that and just get on the hype train. Get on the hype train. So who knows? Sagittarium might be good. If the new book and the rules can change the way that we've been forced to play, like a hiding sort of game, and give us a bit more latitude in terms of the things that we can do, and that's only good. And so things like Sagittarium might be good again. Once that new book drops, Custodes Tactica is resetting to 2nd edition, Custodes Tactica 9th edition, and we're going to go from the beginning and go through it all again. So I think, that's just going to happen. So, I've got to think of a couple of topics for the next couple of weeks, or maybe we'll take a week off, and then it's all go again. And I'm going to be looking for people to come on and give their opinions about things. So if you're interested in coming on the show, just like Chris has been on a couple of times, just let me know. I'm always happy to have guests on the show just to talk about stuff, because more people the merrier. We're a small community and we need to stick together, huddle by the fire, and we need to stick together. Okay. How long would you wait to buy new Custodies models? Well, that's a great question, Sean. As I said, I think you could probably buy the staples. So a unit of bikes, 9 Guardians, a unit of Terminators, a unit of Wardens, whatever tickles your fancy. I think those are all safe buys. We don't know what's going to be good. Everything is this close to being good. And if our book is good and 9th is as it's billed to be, I think everything is going to be viable for at least a number of months. If not 6 months. It's going to take everybody 3 to 6 months to really figure the new edition out. So I think it's actually time you can buy anything. I maybe wouldn't go straight into Forge World right now, because you just don't know what's going to happen with that. As I say, I think that our rules are the least likely to change with those new Forge World books, but you just don't know. And so at the extra expense of buying Forge World resin, I would just buy, as we've always said, when you're first starting Custodies, that same advice is still there. So buy, Valoris or Trajan or whoever, buy 2 Guardian boxes, that gives you your Vexilla, buy 1 or 2 boxes of bikes, buy 1 or 2 boxes of Terminators or Wardens, whichever you want, or both, and start with that. or wait and do the whole crusade thing. Who knows? I don't know what that's going to be like, but I think right now you can still buy all that stuff. But if you really were not sure, just wait for the PA. The PA is coming in a couple of weeks. Just wait for the PA then. But even then, we're not going to be able to tell you right away what to buy and what not to buy just based on a first read through the book, right? And none of us are able to play right now. So, I think if you want to buy it, then buy in. Speaking of playing, so I've been talking a lot to Francois, and, we live pretty similar lives, and in a lot of parts of the country that are opening up, families have had to pick other families to kind of co-isolate. And so I'm thinking that actually it's probably pretty safe to get Francois over to play. It's probably more unsafe for him than it is for me, because he just stays at home all day. His kids stay at home all day. Nobody in his house goes out, whereas I go to the hospital once a week. So maybe if we could do like a Tuesday night game, that gives me 6 days after my last exposure to the hospital to develop symptoms. So maybe that's actually something that could work, a Tuesday night game. And so maybe we could bring back the stream. I'm so excited to bring back the stream for Bat Reps because we have this great new overlay. And I really want to show that off. And we have multiple cameras and stuff now. So I really want to bring it back, but I want to do it safely. And I don't want to put anybody at risk. So maybe, hopefully, I think once the Psychic Awakening comes out, I'm not going to be able to resist. I'm just going to have to do it. So maybe another couple of weeks of isolation. In terms of other things for the channel, so Phil might be returning. Necrons, of course, he's a Necron player. The Necron stuff has piqued his interest, as well as a new edition. He just wasn't into 8th. And so the Phil might be returning, as well as maybe some Lord of the Rings, the Middle-earth game. That might be coming as well. And I am seriously considering board games. This isolation there's been lots of board games playing. There's so many good games out there, and with my setup, we could easily stream board games. I know it's a completely different thing, but it is tabletop gaming. But anyway, we'll see how it goes. I like to stream our weekly, games of Gloomhaven. That would be super fun. I've got lots of really amazing games to play these days. The line between board games and tabletop miniature games is very blurred these days. Very blurred. So that's about it. I'll give another minute for questions, but I'm basically done. Wasn't that much to talk about. So if you think I should open and paint the Genetia Crawl model, then let me know. Might sway me one way or the other. Otherwise, I'm looking for good recommendations on busts. I'm not looking for actually like a 40K bust. I'm looking just for like a normal bust, maybe fantasy or maybe kind of more realistic. And with a good amount of kind of skin and fabric and metal just to practice all these sort of things. And be a real hobby project for the year. Maybe aim to submit it for the painting contest, CanHammer team or CCBB next year. So let me know if you have recommendations. And that's about it. Again, big shout out to patrons, big shout out to YouTube subscribers, Twitch followers, big shout out to members of the Discord. Join it here. Big shout out to Dan, Red Dragon, doing well again, opening up. Big shout out to my American friends and colleagues. Stay safe. Protest strong. Push for change. Vote. And I will see everybody, I guess, tomorrow night.